I remember I was standing in the airport in California one time, and there was this young man in the line near me on the phone.
Scott 咧記得咧有一次咧，佢喺美國嘅加州嘅機場咧排緊隊嘅時候咧，同一條隊咧喺佢附近有個後生仔講緊電話。
A lot of this conversation was him loudly scolding someone, using the F word a lot, and it became apparent soon that the person he was talking to was his mother.
咁咧佢咧攞住個電話咧，好大聲咁樣喺度鬧喎，中間咧仲夾雜好多粗口添。咁啊聽下聽下先知道，原來佢係同佢媽媽講緊電話喎。
And I was in shock.
咁所以我好震驚啦。
I recently rewatched a video of me interacting with my oldest girl when she was little.
咁我近排咧就睇翻有一條片咧，就係我同我大女咧，當佢細個嘅時候一個片段嚟嘅。
She couldn't think of a word, and for some reason I was sort of teasing her, and I wouldn't tell her the word, but I kept asking her to explain it and sort of try to draw it out.
咁啊，當時咧我女咧就噏唔出一個字啦，咁我咧就走去逗佢玩喎，我就起身問佢嘢啦，點都唔幫佢啦，咁樣。咁就逼佢講多啲啦，講多啲啦，但係佢就係講唔到嗰個字。
It went on too long. I could have just told her, but I didn't, and you can see in the video that it was frustrating to her.
咁啊拉扯咗一段時間啦，真係太長時間啦。本身咧我就可以話俾佢聽，究竟佢噏到口唇邊嗰個字係咩嚟嘅，但係我冇講喎，所以整到佢好猛憎。
I remember walking into a small shop in Beijing, and 2 or 3 young people there on duty were all engrossed in their phones.
我又記得咧有一次我喺北京嘅時候入到間鋪頭啦，所有職員咧佢哋都係拿住電話耷低頭喺度撳緊喎。
They didn't look up. They didn't ask me how they could help me. They didn't seem to notice or care that a potential customer was there, and they never saw me take a photo of them or leave the shop.
佢哋咧冇擱高頭，冇見到我，冇懷疑到咧根本有客人入咗嚟呢間鋪頭，更加冇懷疑到咧我就影咗佢哋相，然後咧離開咗間鋪頭，佢哋都唔覺。
Quite a number of years ago, I went to a company annual dinner.
咁幾年之前啦，我去到一個公司嘅週年晚會。
One of the bosses said that her team wasn't there. They were still in the office working because she was punishing them for something.
就聽到有個主管話，佢嗰啲下屬咧仲喺辦公室做緊嘢喎。點解啊？因為咧為咗一啲原因咧，呢一個主管就係罰緊佢啲員工咧要加班啊。
Question today is, how do you treat people?
今日想問大家一個問題，就係你點樣去對待人呢？
My title I put is 4 treats.
咁啊 ，Scott 咧嗰個題目咧就係
Very bit hard to translate. Sorry.
有4劑嘅嘢啦，我
Okay,
簡單嚟
good.
講。
Okay, good. I trust you.
但係唔係啊？你嗰個係正面啲嘅喎，有4劑好嘅嘢啦嚇。
Okay, so we're probably all guilty of mistreating others in one way or another. It's not uncommon.
可能咧我同你咧多多少少咧對待人咧都有虧欠嘅時候嘅，咁呢個唔係唔尋常嘅。
So the 4 treats today are what Paul tells us in Ephesians 6, how to treat people, how to treat our children, how we should treat our parents, how we should treat our boss, and how we should treat our employees.
咁喺今日咧同大家分享嘅經文咧就係以弗所書第6章啦。保羅咧教我哋4樣嘢，教我哋點樣去對待我哋嘅仔女，教我哋點樣對待我哋嘅父母，點樣去對待我哋嘅老闆或者上司，點樣去對待咧我哋嘅員工啦。
If you're a follower of Jesus, this is a good checklist for yourself. It's a kind of reminder. Maybe you have a blind spot or you don't realize.
如果咧你係基督徒嘅話咧，今日咧就係一個好嘅提醒啦，因為咧可能喺經文裏邊啦，去反映到一啲咧我哋忽略咗嘅嘢。
So first, Ephesians 6, verse 1, Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, so that it may go well with you and that you may enjoy long life on earth.
以弗所書第6章第1節啦，咁你可以撬開聖經去跟住睇啦。你們作兒女嘅，要喺主裏聽從父母。
If you're a follower of Jesus and you're a child, especially at home, with your parents, obey your parents. You should.
係，我繼續讀埋佢先嚇。這是理所當然的，要孝敬父母，使你得福，在世長壽。這是第一條帶應許的誡命。咁如果咧你係基督徒，而你係為人子女嘅話咧，你就要去聽從你嘅父母。
And it says, obey your parents in the Lord. What does in the Lord mean?
呢度講到話要喺主裏邊聽從父母，咁即係咩意思咧
I think it can mean one of two things. It could mean obey your parents because Jesus says, because the Lord says. It could mean that. Or it could mean obey the parents in everything that Jesus says to do that's right.
在主裏邊聽從父母啦，咁我會有兩方面去理解呢個意思啦。在主裏邊，咁一方面咧就係因為上帝命令我哋咁樣去做嘅，我哋去聽，咁就係在主裏邊啦。另外一樣嘢咧就係我哋聽從父母嘅乜嘢啊？就係咧合乎神意思嘅、合乎神旨意嘅指示啦。
And of course, both of these could be true.
咁呢兩樣嘢可以同時發生嘅。
If your parents tell you to rob a bank, I don't think you should obey them because Paul said obey your parents.
如果咧你嘅父母叫你喂，你快啲去打劫銀行啦，咁我唔認為因為保羅叫你要孝敬父母咧，你就要聽父母話去打劫銀行啦。
But what is this about? If you're at home as a child with parents, they're going to be telling you to do stuff that's normal and right, and a lot of it or some of it you may not want to do, of course, and you have a choice. Do you obey or not?
如果你係同父母一齊住嘅，你父母叫你去做一啲事情，嗰啲嘢咧一定係係合乎邏輯噶啦，係正確噶啦。咁你就算唔想做都好啦，就應該都要去聽從你嘅父母去服從佢嘅。
This treat is a two-flavor treat. It's not only obey, but also honor. It's a vanilla chocolate ice cream. It's a two-flavor.
咁呢一劑咧係有兩個味道嘅，就係咧係咩
Chocolate and vanilla.
OK
Whatever you like.
咁有兩個味道啦，都係好味嘅味道啦，朱古力啊、雲尼拿味啦，係啊，兩
Tastes good to the parents anyway. Obey and honor. Obey and honor. A little bit different, these two.
呢度咧要聽從父母啦，亦都要孝敬父母，要去榮耀你嘅父母喎。
Because you can obey without honoring.
你唔應該咧係服從，但係冇榮耀你嘅父母。
Right? You can say, yes, I will go clean my room, stomp in, bang the door. That is obeying without honoring.
嗱，我舉個例啦，就係如果你父母叫你拖地都好啦，拖地啦，你話好，我拖咯，跟住嘭門，咁樣你係聽從，不過咧你冇榮耀到你嘅父母。
Rolling your eyes.
又或者翻白眼啦，係嘛？
Okay, honor. Gossiping about the bad things about your parents with your friends at school. That's not honoring your parents.
翻到學校就同同學咧就講父母嘅不是啦，咁呢個咧就唔係榮耀你嘅父母啊。
Well, look at this second part. It's the first command with a promise. Here's the promise. It means if you follow this commandment to obey your parents, you get something. There's a kind of reward. The reward is that it may go well with you and that you may live a long time.
呢個咧要孝敬父母係呢一個係第一條帶應許嘅誡命啊！咩叫帶應許嘅誡命咧？就係你跟住咁樣做啦，你會有賞賜嘅。個賞賜咧係兩樣嘢喎。第一樣使你得福，第二樣使你在世長壽。
Now, I think there's two parts to this too, kind of interesting. Is this sort of a mystical, miraculous reward that God provides? Maybe.
呢度講到嘅得福啦、長壽啦，係咪好奧妙、好奧秘咁樣去俾我哋咧？咁可能係啦。
Is God going to send extra angels to protect you because you obeyed your parents?
咁可能咧，當你去服從你嘅父母嘅時候咧，上帝咧就派多啲天使去保護你，去幫助你。
Maybe so. Maybe so.
可能嘅。
But also, it just makes good common sense too, because your parents normally tell you, don't do this thing because they want to protect you.
咁但係咧，即係如果即係頭先我哋提嘅嘢係有可能發生嘅，但係另外一方面咧，喺邏輯上咧就係、如果我哋聽從我哋嘅父母，咁我哋父母係為我哋好噶嘛，咁聽佢哋講去做一件好嘅事，都係保護我哋㗎。
Right? Don't climb up that tree. Don't drive your car too fast. Don't do drugs. If you obey your parents, you won't die so soon.
係啊，如果我哋聽從我哋嘅父母啦，佢話喂，唔好爬嗰棵樹啊，唔好揸車揸咁快啊，咁我哋唔好去吸毒啊。如果我哋真係聽我哋嘅父母講，我哋起碼真係會長命啲啦。
Okay, so it's God. So it's not going to be easy all the time. It's not easy obeying your parents, coming home at 11 o'clock on a Friday night. That might not be easy. I understand that. I remember being in that situation. Might not be easy. So what? Do it anyway.
我明嘅，我明有陣時咧，父母嘅指示咧係唔容易跟隨嘅。明明咧就係星期五就係一個好日子出去玩啊，又要我11點前返到屋企喎，係唔容易去跟嘅。但係請你聽從你嘅父母。
Okay, treat number 2. Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord.
第二劑係啲咩呢？就係、你們作父親嘅，不要惹兒女的氣，只要照着主的教訓和警戒養育他們。
Well, look at this. It doesn't say don't discipline your children. That's a thing as parents that we need to do. We need to discipline our children.
留意呢度咧，唔係提到話作為父母咧係唔應該去管教你嘅兒女。
But how do you go about it? How do you go about telling your children, look, you need to do this, or you've done wrong, and how do you go about it?
咁個方式係點樣咧？我哋點樣去管教？點樣去話俾我哋嘅兒女聽？佢哋應該要點樣做，同埋唔應該要點樣做咧？
I think part of this at least is for parents not to nag their children.
我相信啦，我猜想喺我角度，我認為咧就係作為父母咧係唔應該揞你嘅仔女嘅。
What is
揞咯。Keep
Okay.
talking and talking.
Oh, yeah,
and talking
okay,
and
yeah,
talking
right,
and
yeah,
talking.
that's exactly right. Good example. Yeah, because it's easy to do. It's really easy to do as parents.
作為父母咧，真係好容易，呢個係咪職業病？係會揞啲仔女嘅。
Occupational hazard. Jiggy bang, right? Occupational illness of being a parent. Because after you say do it, it's hard to stop. Go clean your room. Just stop. But it's hard to stop. Go clean your room because you didn't clean your room last week, and I've told you to clean your room lots of times, and it's really bothering me, and you need to do a good job. Last time you didn't do a good job. Why aren't you more like your sister? She always cleans her room. That's really nice. When I was young, I always had to clean. I cleaned my room when I was young. My mother, and if I didn't, I got beat. You know, like that.
有一個其實我諗都唔使例子啦，大家都好明白㗎。就係咧，即係阿媽啦，叫你去執房啦，我叫咗你執房咯。上個禮拜你唔執，所以咧我今日都繼續要叫你執啦。你學下你家姐啦，你睇下佢間房幾乾淨，你睇下你間房幾污糟，你執房啦。你幾時先執啊？起晒咁講啦。
Wow. Okay, good. You're.
I have potential to.
You have potential. To be a teacher. Teachers too. So don't exasperate your children. This would be a good thing for parents to not only think about nagging, but to look and think, how do I exasperate my children? Maybe there are other ways, and look at it. Maybe I give them, here's one, you tell them you will do something and then you don't do it. You promise them something and then you don't follow through. That can be very exasperating.
頭先咧講到唔好去囉嗦啦，即係冇咁呢一個係其中一樣嘢係不惹兒女生氣嘅。咁另外一樣咧就係、其實你就要去留意翻咧會做啲乜嘢會去惹佢哋生氣咯。咁跟住咧另外一部分我都會認為啦。就係如果你應承咗你仔女嘅話咧，如果你唔做嘅話咧，你冇去跟隨住你所應承嘅嘢咧，都係會令到佢哋生氣嘅。
Now look at how these two treats go together. If everyone is doing their part, it gets easier for everyone to do what they're supposed to do.
你留意翻，你唔好獨立淨係睇咧，作為父母唔好惹你兒女氣喎。我哋一齊睇埋咧，就係要去孝敬父母啦。就講到咧，如果父母同仔女咧各自喺自己嘅崗位上面係做得好嘅話咧，咁就令到大家都好過啦。
If children are obedient and honoring their parents, it will be less likely for the parents to exasperate their children, I think, and vice versa.
如果咧仔女係聽從父母、榮耀父母嘅話咧，相信好大程度上咧，好大嘅程度上就係父母未必會去惹佢兒女嘅氣啦。咁相反亦都係一樣啦。
And the point, as in all 4 treats today, is not to point the finger at anyone but yourself, and not to say, "Oh, child, you have to obey me, you have to honor me because this is what is right." That's not really the point. The point today is, if you're a child, to ask yourself, do I obey and honor my parents? And if you're a parent, especially a father, to say, do I exasperate my children?
今日咧同大家分享嗰4個指示咧，嗰4劑嘢咧，並唔係愛你咧，唔係愛嚟咧俾你咧去指住話人哋唔啱嘅。嗱，女啊女，你知唔知啊？嗱，就好似呢度咁講啊，你要點做啊？而係咧藉住咧呢啲經文咧去反省自己咧有冇做得好自己嗰個職位嗰個崗位啦。
And just because it says fathers, I don't think it therefore means that it's okay for mothers to exasperate their children.
呢度話你哋作為父親嘅唔好惹兒女嘅氣啊！我絕對唔認為咧係講緊咧你哋作為母親就可以咧惹兒女嘅氣啦。
And what do we do instead? There's some instruction. There's a negative side, but there's also a positive side. Fathers, do what? Instead of exasperating your children, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord.
呢度講到咧，作為父母唔好去做啲乜嘢嘅時候，同樣咧亦都叫佢哋要做啲乜嘢啦。佢哋要做嘅咧就係照住主嘅教訓同埋警戒咧養育佢哋。
Now here's a thing some people think, and I don't know how common that is in this group of us here. I have heard it from people in this church before, but something like this, well, when it comes to church or religion, I'll let them grow up and make up their mind then, and at the moment I'm not going to say too much about them. They think it wouldn't be right.
咁咧，我曾經咧聽過有一啲基督徒係咁樣講啦。咁我唔知道你嗰個想法係點樣，就係啲咩咧？就有啲基督徒嘅父母咧，佢哋就話：我等我啲仔女大咗，佢哋自己做決定，我先同佢講福音啦。
This is a bad idea. If you believe Christianity is true, if it's right, if it's essential for salvation, for your child's eternal life, then that is a bad idea.
我唔認為頭先咧嗰啲父母所講嘅咧係好嘅提議或者好嘅想法嚟嘅。我認為咧，如果你自己係相信神啦嘅教導啦，咁呢一樣嘢佢哋即係你啲仔女接唔接受上帝咧，係關乎佢哋嘅永生嘅喎，係關乎佢哋嘅救恩嘅喎。
I don't think this is any different from sending children to school. You wouldn't say, "Oh, wait till the child's 19 and then let them learn stuff." Why would you do that?
同樣啊，你讓你嘅仔女去返學校學習去讀書，你都唔會話等佢哋大咗有能力去自己決定嘅時候先再算啦，你唔會咁噶嘛。
So now, how might you go about this? Well, here we have at least once a week where there's a place to learn about the instruction of the Lord.
咁我會認為咧，起碼一個星期啦，有一段時間啊，就係而家呢個崇拜嘅時間，佢可以咧去學習咧神嘅教導啦。
Children are welcome here.
咁我哋係歡迎咧細路仔嘅。
And children learn things more than we think, even at a young age.
即使咧佢哋年紀細啦，但係佢哋學嘢好快嘅。
So if you here's what I do. You see my children here they are, and they don't, whether they believe or not, that's up to them. That is their freedom. They can decide, but at least they know, and they have something to make a decision about.
咁Scott 咧就帶咗佢啲 三個女咧嚟到教會嘅，佢哋相唔相信上帝咧？佢哋絕對有自由去選擇，但係起碼佢哋要知道係基於啲乜嘢，佢哋作出啲咁嘅選擇。
Now, again, I don't know if this is embarrassing. I don't mean it to be, but my oldest daughter is 19 years old. She's an adult.
咁我嘅大女係19歲啦，已經係成年人啦。
But she lives in my house.
佢就住喺我屋企，佢係冇自己獨立出嚟住嘅。
And so I said, if you live in my house, there's just not too many rules, but one rule is you need to come to church.
咁我會話，既然你係住喺我間屋裏邊啦，咁我冇好多嘅規矩要你跟隨嘅。不過咧，其中一個規矩咧就係你要同我一齊返教會。
Now, and she's obedient about that.
咁佢係聽我話啦。
Okay, great.
咁係件好事嚟嘅。
Why I'm telling you this is because there are some parents who look at their 6-year-old and say, oh, he doesn't want to come to church. I don't want to force him. My 19-year-old is coming to church. I think you can bring your 6-year-old.
我點解同你分享呢一樣嘢咧？係因為有一啲父母佢哋就話我6歲個仔咧，佢唔想返教會啊，所以我唔想逼佢咯咁樣。咁我就係想去鼓勵你啦，就係我19歲嘅女咧都聽從我咧嚟到教會啦。咁你一定可以咧帶到你6歲嘅仔返嚟教會。
Now, you might have another situation where your husband or wife is not a believer. That's another situation, and you really have a difficulty in bringing your child to church. I understand that.
咁我明白咧，如果你嘅配偶咧唔係基督徒嘅話咧，你要帶你嘅兒女咧返嚟教會咧係有困難嘅。
This verse does not say you have to bring your child to church. This verse says, bring your children up in the training and instruction of the Lord. You can do that at home.
呢度提到咧，呢度嘅指示咧，以弗所書第6章第4節嘅指示咧係。並唔係話你必定要帶你嘅兒女返教會啦，但係咧呢度嘅命令呢個指示咧就係要照住主嘅教訓同埋警戒養育佢哋啦。呢一樣嘢絕對你係可以喺自己屋企做到嘅。
So if you can't actually bring them, you really can't. That's okay, fine. Train them at home. Teach them at home. You can surely do that.
如果咧你冇辦法帶到佢哋返嚟教會啦，明白嘅。咁但係咧你係可以喺屋企咧，照住主嘅教訓同警戒咧，養育佢哋。
And the teaching can be formal or informal. This is sitting here. This is rather formal, but it doesn't have to be formal. And at home, it can be a formal. Okay, every night we're going to sit down, we read the Bible for 15 minutes, and it's set, sort of formal. But it can be informal as well.
咁啊，點樣去將主嘅教訓咧，同埋警戒養育佢哋咧？我相信咧，可以用一啲嚴肅啦，或者唔嚴肅啦。正式或者唔正式嘅方式咧，去教佢哋嘅，去幫佢哋嘅。即係譬如啦，你係可以每日我哋要坐低一齊睇聖經15分鐘。咁呢一個係比較正式咧，比較嚴肅嘅方式嚟嘅。咁但係其實你係可以用另外一啲方式咯。
Because hopefully you have a relationship with your children to the degree where you talk sometimes and you know a little bit about what's going on in their life. And when you hear, oh, this thing happened, you can help them to say, okay, this person has hurt you. What should you do? Maybe forgive them. Jesus teaches us to forgive and help them through that.
舉個例啦，咁我希望咧，你同你嘅兒女咧個關係咧係起碼去到一個地步啦，就係你知道佢發生緊啲咩事，當佢有困難嘅時候，同你分享嘅時候，你係可以去俾到一啲神俾你嘅教導啦。譬如咧，如果個仔女話俾你聽，佢喺學校或者佢受到傷害啦，咁你就可以去教佢啦。因為耶穌教我哋要去寬恕啦，你亦都可以教佢去寬恕啦。
So you can that still counts as bringing them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. It still counts.
咁頭先嗰個例子咧，都係屬於咧去照住神，去照住上帝嘅教訓同警戒去養育佢哋嘅。
And some of our members here, your children aren't in the same country. They're in another country.
喺在座咧，有一啲弟兄姊妹啦，佢哋嘅兒女咧都唔係喺同一個國家嘅喎，喺第二個國家度生活緊。
We live in a time where we can video chat. I'm sure you video chat with your children. As long as you can do that, you still have the opportunity to bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord.
不過咧，因為而家嘅現代科技發達啦，你起碼你會用藉住科技啦，你都可以見到你啲仔女嘅。咁我相信咧，你仍然咧係可以咧按住神嘅教訓啊、警戒啊去教育佢哋嘅。
Two more treats today, verse 5. Slaves, obey your earthly masters with respect and fear and with sincerity of heart, just as you would obey Christ.
以弗所書第6章第5至7節咧就提到作為僕人啦，你哋作為僕人嘅要懼怕戰兢，用誠實嘅心聽從你哋肉身嘅主人，好像聽從基督一樣。
Obey them not only to win their favor when their eye is on you, but as slaves of Christ, doing the will of God from your heart.
不要只在眼前侍奉，像是討人喜歡的，要像基督的僕人，從心裏遵行神的旨意。
Serve wholeheartedly as if you were serving the Lord, not people, because you know that the Lord will reward each one for whatever good they do, whether they are slave or free.
甘心侍奉，好像服侍主，不像服侍人，因為曉得各人所行的善事，不論是為奴的，是自主的，都必按所行的得主的賞賜。
This treat, I think, is valid to interpret it today as employer-employee relationship.
我相信咧，呢一段經文咧係合適咧喺今時今日啦，我哋應用喺咧僱主同僱員呢一個關係當中。
Employer, obey your boss with respect and fear, with sincerity of heart, just as if your boss were Jesus.
我哋作為下屬嘅，作為僕人，作為職員嘅，我哋應該咧向我哋嘅上司啦，或者向我哋嘅老闆啦，要懼怕戰兢，用誠實嘅心咧去聽從啦。就當你嘅上司同老闆咧係耶穌一樣。
Obey your boss, not only when he's in the office, but even when he's gone out.
唔係咧，淨係你嘅老闆咧喺你面前咧，你先聽佢話喎。佢唔喺你面前，你都要聽佢話喎。
Just as if your boss were Jesus, and you're doing what Jesus wants you to, not because you're forced to, but because you want to.
你聽從你嘅上司咧，就好似聽從上帝，就好似聽從咧耶穌基督一樣啦。唔係因為咧你係被逼要去咁做啦，而係你係願意咁樣做。
And why does Paul even need to write these 4 treats?
點解保羅咧要寫出嚟咧？要咁明白咁樣講出嚟咧？呢4樣嘢。
He's addressing problems. Children tend to not obey their parents. Fathers tend to exasperate their children. Slaves or employees tend to play when the boss is not in the office. And in a moment, bosses also tend to treat their employees harshly. These are problems, so he's addressing them.
相信咧，保羅咧就係為咗要去處理一啲實際嘅問題啦，就係兒女冇去榮耀佢哋嘅父母啦，或者去聽從佢哋嘅父母啦。父母咧亦都係惹兒女嘅氣啦，又或者咧係僕人咧喺主人唔喺面前嘅時候咧就唔努力工作啦，又或者咧主人咧對待僕人咧係唔好噶啦。
It's not easy. Why is it not easy to obey your boss with respect and fear? Because a lot of bosses are bad bosses.
點解咁難做到咧？去對主人啊或者上司啊咁服從咧？係因為咧佢哋唔係好嘅上司咯，好多嘅上司都唔係好嘅上司咯。
Hong Kong, I don't know if it has more bad bosses per company than other places, but I think we're above average.
咁雖然咧冇實際嘅數字啦，去統計咧喺香港嘅平均每間公司有幾多個衰老闆或者上司啦，但係相信咧都係佔大多數噶啦。
You increased that a little bit. That's okay. I've been lucky. I've had good bosses. If you're my old boss and you're listening, you're probably one of the good ones. I've had so many good bosses, but I've heard so many horror stories from Hong Kong about bosses, and it's really shocking. And I can understand how, if that was my boss, I would not want to obey them with respect and fear and sincerity of heart. I would be spitting in their coffee.
Scott 咧自己咧就遇到咧多數咧都係遇到好嘅老闆嘅，咁但係咧佢就聽到啦，好多人啦喺香港工作嘅時候咧，有好多老闆咧都真係好恐怖㗎，做嘅事情，即係如果換轉係我咧，我就可能會甩啖口水落去杯咖啡度咁樣㗎啦。
Now it's hard. So there is an encouragement, verse 8. Jesus will reward you for whatever good you do. If your boss is bad and you still work hard for them and treat them with respect, Jesus will reward you.
咁咧，但係咧，我仍然鼓勵你啦，去聽從你嘅上司啦，無論佢係好定係唔好啦。因為咧，聖經咧喺第8節呢度講到話咧，上帝咧，耶穌咧會去獎賞你嘅喎。如果你係對你嘅上司係好嘅話，去聽從佢嘅話。
Okay, our final treat today, verse 9, masters treat your slaves in the same way. Let's just keep that modern interpretation. Bosses, treat your employees in the same way.
第9節啦，最後啦，就係咧作為主人嘅代僕人，亦都係同一個道理啦，唔好威嚇佢哋啦。咁套用咧落今日嘅情況啦，咁我都會想啲老闆啊或者上司啊，你對待你嘅下屬或者員工啊，都係對待佢哋好啲啦。
Don't threaten them, since you know that he who is both their master and yours is in heaven, and there's no favoritism with him.
係啦，唔好去威嚇你嘅下屬或者員工啦，因為咧你知道咧你嘅員工啊同埋你自己咧都同樣有一位主人咧喺天上邊，而上帝咧係並唔會偏待人嘅。
Your boss has a boss.
你雖然係呢間公司嘅老闆啫，你仍然有自己嘅老闆嘅。
And that's Jesus, and he's your boss too.
咁你老闆嘅老闆咧就係耶穌基督啊，同樣啦，你自己嘅老闆都係耶穌基督。
And if you don't treat people right, if you don't treat employees right, your boss in heaven, Jesus, he cares.
咁如果咧你對你嘅下屬或者員工咧唔好嘅話咧，你喺天上邊嘅老闆咧，佢係好在意呢件事嘅喎。
And here's the specific mistreatment mentioned. Do not threaten them.
呢度咧特別咧清楚咁樣寫低啦，就係唔好威嚇佢哋。
Here's the big threat is you will lose your job. You don't do this thing that is not in your job description, you will lose your job. That's the threat.
其中一個威嚇咧就係話，如果你唔咁樣做嘅話，你會冇咗份工咯。
If you don't work in my daughter's house as well, you'll lose your job. You're afraid, so you do it even though it's illegal.
咁咧，如果你唔去我個女屋企同樣去做清潔嘅話咧，我知係犯法，但係咧你會，如果你唔聽從嘅話咧，我就會炒咗你咯，你會冇咗份工咯。
If you don't work 3 extra hours after you're getting off time every day for no extra pay, you might lose your job. That's the threat. Even if it's not stated, that's the fear, that's the threat.
如果咧你唔係每日放工之後咧都自動加班3個鐘嘅話咧，你會冇一份工咯。雖然咧可能你老闆咧冇講到明啦呢啲事情啦，但係咧仍然咧讓你去有呢一份嘅恐懼啦，咁都係一個威嚇嚟嘅。
The abuse of employees is common. It might even be illegal, but even if it's illegal, it's rarely enforced in Hong Kong.
即使咧員工咧係受到欺壓都好啦，但係咧好多時候就算係唔合理咁樣或者唔合法咁樣去遭到欺壓都好啦，好多時候都個僱主都唔需要追究個責任，即係都冇得追究個僱主呢個責任。
And there are some things that are legal, but they aren't right.
不過咧都提醒大家啦，有一啲事情咧，佢係冇犯法㗎，但係佢係一件錯嘅事嚟嘅。
To take your retirement money and use it to cover your long service pay is legal in Hong Kong, but it is wrong.
將咧你強積金對沖啦，即係將屬於你退休用嘅錢，但係咧去作為你而家嘅遣散費喎，呢一件事冇犯法啊，但係唔啱嘅事情。
And if you're an employer, you don't have to do that. You don't have to take legally money from the retirement fund and use it to pay long service pay. You don't have to, so don't. It's not right, even though it's legal.
作為僱主咧，你唔係一定要去攞你員工嘅退休金嚟對沖作為佢嘅而家嘅遣散費噶嘛。作為僱主，你係唔冇呢個必要咁樣做噶嘛。咁樣你就唔好去做啦。即使咧嗰一樣嘢係合法嘅。
It's legal to ask your domestic helper to switch days off and to say, oh, would you work on Sunday? And I'll give you another day off. It's legal. It's not right.
喺僱傭條例咧，你係可以同員工咧去改咧、更改咧休息日係喺邊一日放嘅。咁但係咧係合法啦，但係咧係唔啱嘅事。
Here's how to figure it out. If what you're doing as an employer is right or wrong, it's the golden rule. What if I were the employee? Would I want my boss to do this to me? And answer honestly.
頭先咧所講嘅唔同嘅情況啦，最後咧我都想俾你有一個判斷咧係啱應唔應該做嘅一個準則啦，就係咧你想人哋點樣對你咧，你就點對人啦。如果嗰樣嘢啦，你對你嘅員工係咁樣做啦，咁當你係人哋員工嘅時候，你想唔想人哋咁樣對你先？
So today, Paul's 4 treats is not an invitation to finger pointing unless you're pointing it at yourself.
今日咧，我哋睇嘅經文啦，保羅提到嗰4樣嘢咧，我並唔係愛嚟咧去俾你去指責其他人嘅，而係咧去檢討自己。
Loads of Christians don't treat other people right.
非常之多嘅基督徒咧，佢哋係冇好好咁樣對待其他人嘅。
And I hear these stories, and it's the boss or it's the employer, and they're a Christian, and they're doing all these horrible things to their employees. And I hear these stories, and it's just sick. Don't be one of those Christians.
實在咧，聽過太多嘅故事咧，作為一個基督徒嘅僱主或者上司咧，佢係點樣對待佢嘅下屬，又或者係員工咯。咁實在令人哋聽到咧耳都生起枕啦。咁唔好讓你咧唔好成為其中一個唔好嘅故事嘅主角啦。
Instead, today, take a look in the mirror and make the changes you need to make.
今日咧好好咧去呢度係講喺塊鏡嗰度啦。咁今日咧好好咧揾盆水咧去照下自己啦，好好去反省下啦。
Obey and honor your parents.
如果有嘢要改咧，今日快去改啦。願你咧係去服從啦，同埋去榮耀你嘅父母。
Don't exasperate your children.
唔好惹你兒女嘅氣。
Teach them about God.
去教導佢哋關於咧去認識神，教導佢哋認識神。
Imagine your boss at work is Jesus and work hard for him or her.
想像咧你嘅僱主或者上司咧就係耶穌啦，你撲心撲命去為佢啦。
Treat your employees as if they were Jesus working for you. If Jesus were working for you, how would you treat him? Would you give him a day off? An extra day off?
看待咧你嘅僱員啦或者下屬咧，看待佢哋為耶穌啦。如果耶穌係幫你打工嘅話咧，你會唔會唔俾佢放假？你可能會俾多一日佢放假添啊。
Let me find some extra work for you, Jesus, because there's 5 more minutes on the clock, and I want to get the most out of you today. Would you say that to Jesus?
仲有5分鐘就放工咯喎，耶穌，唔好嘥啊，用盡佢，等我揾啲嘢俾你做先。
Let's pray.
我哋一齊祈禱。
Dear God, thank you for the simple instructions on how to get along with those around us.
親愛上帝啊，多謝咧，你俾我哋咁清晰簡明嘅指引咧，教我哋點樣去對待其他人。
Open our eyes.
求你開我哋嘅眼睛。
Help us to treat our children, our parents, our boss, our employees with love.
讓我哋咧懂得點樣去對待我哋嘅兒女，對待我哋嘅父母，對待我哋嘅上司，對待我哋嘅下屬，都係咧有愛。
In Jesus' name, may it be so.
奉耶穌嘅名祈禱，誠心所願。